and this is the Oracle Podcast, and we're going to try this again. I recorded last time, and my audio was just super messed up, so I'm doing this one more time, and hopefully this time we can get it just a little bit better. It's already going significantly better. My test recording was so much better, so we're going to try this one more time, and hopefully we can do it just a little bit better. But today's prophecy is going to be, we're going to talk about the first 3 episodes of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and we are going to talk about them in exacting detail. Maybe too much detail, some might even say, but we're just going to go with it because I really enjoy Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and it is one of my favorite shows. It is doing so well at adapting these first couple chapters of the Sea of Monsters, so let's dive right in. The season opens with Grover on an island somewhere in the Sea of Monsters, and he appears to have just landed. And there's a storm going on, and he's kind of trouncing through the jungle, and he stumbles upon not only a satyr skeleton, but he also stumbles upon his pipes, and he discovers that these are pretty powerful pipes, and he is able to use them to perform very powerful nature magic. So that's super exciting. And we kind of get into some of Luke's gang. They show up and they start accosting Grover, and they give him a hard time. They really just Grover instantly knows one of them, and kind of figures out who she is, and figures out that they're part of Luke's crew. And she also lets slip that they're looking for the Golden Fleece, because Grover is there, and she finds a thread of the Golden Fleece. And then Grover is captured by some sort of giant sea monster and pulled into the ocean. And with that, we are dropped back into Percy's POV, where Percy falls out of bed from having this all as a dream. And Percy talks about how demigods have these vivid nightmares lots of times. And then we get introduced to his room. And Percy's room is just the perfect encapsulation of a teenage boy's room. There are posters all over the wall. There's dirty clothes on the floor. The bed is not made. It's adorable. Percy is obviously getting older, but that doesn't really bother me. Like I said, he's still a kid, so it's really not that big of a deal. He has pictures of Grover and Annabeth on his wall, which is very cute. I think that his friendship with Grover and Annabeth are so important to the story going forward, and it leads to so much important things in the future. So that's excellent. And then we also end up with some of the little details that, like, Tyson is living with Sally and Percy at this point. And that's a change from the books, because in the books, Tyson is just going to school with Percy. They're not living together, and they are actually living together here. So that's kind of a change that I honestly really enjoy, because it cuts out some of the fluff and some of the stuff at the beginning of the season that I don't think is necessary to the overall story, but it allows them to tell more of the important things of the story, especially at the end. So, like, if you were to do them in school and them doing the whole thing in the classrooms and stuff at the beginning, like, you have a very short scene of that at the beginning. But if you were to do a long, prolonged version of that, then you would end up with a worse story overall, I think, because it is not the best parts of the story. Like, the best parts of the story are later in the story, after Annabeth shows up and picks Percy and Tyson up. I think that that is where the story really gets going. And it once again shows that Sally is just a saint. She takes Tyson in, even though he is not a human, and she can tell that he's not a human. She also has a prophetic dream about Percy, and that kind of that kind of tells the future of like certain characters that we haven't even met yet, which I'm gonna try not to spoil super further along episodes, but it kind of foretells the future of some characters who we will meet next season, I think. And it's just like those little things like that can tell that Rick Riordan was a big part of this production, and he is slipping in little hints and details here and there that are going to make the story possibly even better than the books. Now, I'm not going to say that they're 100% going to be better than the books, but they are going to be really good regardless. So I'm really excited for that. Percy is great. Walker Scobell does an excellent job with all of his scenes here. And Sally gives Percy a drachma, and they talk about her dream of how she has seen a scythe and a trident on the two sides of a drachma. So that's very foretelling. I think that is kind of leading towards Percy's decisions that he's going to have to make, especially further into episode 3 and on from there. And then we also have some more like foreshadowing about him having a great prophecy and that sort of thing. Another fun detail that I like is Tyson wears a Mets cap, and as if Annabeth doesn't need another reason to dislike Tyson, but he's a Mets fan and she's a Yankees fan, so can't see eye to eye. They're wearing different caps. I don't even know if she's really a Yankees fan, but she iconically wears the Yankees cap, so it's fine. Percy is kind of has a little bit of a strained relationship with Tyson here at the beginning, because it's probably hard to have a ton of friends with Tyson always following you around and that whole thing. And Percy feels obligated to befriend him because his mom took him in, and because he probably doesn't have a lot of friends. So Percy probably feels a little bit of resentment there. But it's a very relatable, like, young teenage mindset that he has here. And so he's just trying to go through his own life too. But they are walking down the street, and Annabeth shows up, and the Gray sisters cab shows up, and and Tyson picks Percy up, and Annabeth immediately goes into attack mode using her iconic Yankees cap, turning invisible, and she threatens Tyson with a knife, and then they get into the Gray sisters cab. And the Gray sisters cab is a plot device that I really, really enjoy in the whole Percy Jackson mythos. One, because it shows up in multiple properties. It shows up here, and it shows up in the Trials of Apollo is one of the namely other ones. And um, I think that it's so funny when it shows up in Trials of Apollo, because here Percy like has to threaten them and like has to convince them to tell him their little bits of prophecy. But then you kind of get a peek behind the curtain of what they are like in Trials of Apollo. And Apollo's like, yeah, I don't care what little bit of prophecy you have for me. And they're like, oh, he's threatening us. He's going to destroy our eye. He's crazy. But he is not doing any of that. And they're like, okay, fine, we're gonna tell you your prophecy anyway. And they have a fun bit of prophecy for him there. It's in the Dante's Inferno. But obligatory Trials of Apollo plug done. I think that the Grey Sisters are such a fun part of this, because not only is it a bit of prophecy that they get, but they also get a little bit of transportation and prophecy. So that's this whole cool thing about the Grey Sisters. I think they're a really unique little combo. The other thing that I really like about this early part is, although they don't actually play dodgeball with the Lystragonians, they incorporated the ball type things in, and the way that looks is really cool. I really enjoy the way that they're like the way that they're drawn in some of the CGI parts, and some of the way that they just look. They look perfect. And then the camp border looks really good too, with its like kind of electrical beams and the way that all looks. I think that is really cool. And Annabeth allowing Tyson in is perfect. Again, um, that all is perfect. And then we get to Clarice. And Clarice is being as cool as ever. She is absolutely owning every scene that she is in. She takes down the Lystragonian in one foul swoop, and she has this really funny moment with Percy where she uh, throws the spear at the Lystragonian who got inside the boundary, and takes him down. And Percy's like, "Oh, Clarice, you fix your spear," and she's like, "Shut up, Jackson." And I think that's really funny. And then she has another moment later during the chariot races where she kind of says the same thing. Even though he didn't say anything in that instance, I think that that's really funny. And Clarice is leading a group of campers here. So that is kind of showing some of the early hints of her leadership abilities, not only in the fact that she is a great warrior, she took down the Lystragonian, but she's also a great leader that is being shown here. So that's really cool. And then we're introduced to our uh, our main antagonist for the season. Annabeth rightly deduces that this was likely just a distraction and that there is likely going to be an attack somewhere else in camp. And they deduce that it will likely be at Thalia's tree. So they boogie over to Thalia's tree and they find Luke poisoning Thalia's tree with elder python venom. And it's this really, I think that it's this really cool moment because the actor who plays Luke, he obviously looks like he does not want to be there and does not want to be doing that, but he feels like he has to be. And Backbiter looks great in that scene. The whole scene is just perfect because he like does not look happy that Annabeth saw him doing this. He doesn't look happy about doing this. He is just he is so torn up inside, and it's obvious that he really does not want to do this exact thing. But he also looks absolutely dripped out with his polo sweater, and Blackjack looks sweet. So again, I also love the way that Blackjack flies. I don't know if we saw any Pegasi in the last episode or in the last season, but the way that Blackjack flies is superb. I think that Blackjack is just absolutely wonderful. The way that he kind of swoops and then like falls and swoops and falls, it seems more realistic for a large animal who grew wings to fly than just absolutely like taking off into the air in no time. I think that is just a more original thing. And then we're introduced to our kind of secondary antagonist in Tantalus. And Tantalus is such an interesting character because he is a terrible guy. He was sent to the fields of damnation where he is forced to sit under a tree, like a peach tree that has the most ripe succulent fruit, that's next to a stream that has this crystal clear water, but he cannot eat or drink any of them. And Zeus, who I think was the one who originally sent him there, called him up because because he wanted him to replace Chiron as the activities director for camp, because Chiron is a son of Kronos, not taking into account that like he is a son of Kronos, not taking into account that Poseidon is a son of Kronos, Hades is a son of Kronos, Dionysus is a grandson of Kronos, Percy is a grandson of Kronos. Like literally, the whole Olympian family tree descends from Kronos. So I think that it's just that like Annabeth makes that point too. It's like, yeah, this is such a silly reason to send Chiron away, but he does it anyway. And then we get a really funny moment with Dionysus where he's talking about how we get the moment from the trailer, and it was a moment in the trailer that I really didn't like very much because it's Mr. D saying, "The danger the camp is under is greater than you could possibly imagine. We might have to cancel movie night." Like that's kind of the gist that he gives off. He's like saying it in this big dramatic way because in the book, that's really not the role that or that Dionysus plays. He isn't the big mentor. He is kind of a more of a joking or almost antagonistic figure towards Percy in this book, and he's almost on Tantalus's side. So it's really funny to see him say that, and then it gets immediately turned on its head. He's more worried about the chariot races than the danger that camp is under. So I think that it's really funny, and he's like, yeah, these monster attacks, they might disrupt our chariot racing schedule. This is the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to us. um and we find out that Tantalus was the one who decided to bring back the chariot races, which in the books I think that it's a detail that they should have introduced back into here because it gives good reason why they weren't here and why it's such a bad idea for Tantalus to be reintroducing them. And this is like, didn't like 7 people die the last time that we did chariot races? And then we get another moment of Dionysus just absolutely being hilarious because he's just like loudly munching on popcorn the whole time in front of Tantalus, and Tantalus is like looking over at him super annoyed, and Dionysus is like, sorry, and just keeps eating popcorn. It's really funny. And then Tantalus gets annoyed with Percy, so he sends him into cabin arrest, and he calls in 2 Ares goons to come and take him to his cabin. And honestly, it's just hilarious because if Percy wanted to, he could absolutely wreck these two. He is going of his own free will. Like there's absolutely no reason to send guards with him. And what would they do anyway? But Percy gets put into house arrest for the moment, and that's just kind of the whole thing that's going on there. And he meets back up with Tyson there, and Tyson is happy that he is not alone because Tyson, I forgot to mention this earlier, Tyson got claimed by Poseidon, and it's not this moment of everyone making fun of Tyson like it is in the books. Like in the books, there's this whole big point made about how everyone is like teasing Percy and making fun of Percy because he has this new half brother who is a Cyclops, and it's a whole thing. But in here, Dionysus like teases Percy and makes fun of him about it, but in the campers at large seem not to care as much about that. So I like that change. I think that's good. And then Annabeth and Percy kind of have this moment of tension and strife because earlier they had a little bit of tension and strife about, well, you had a drachma. Why didn't you call me? Like, what was going on there? They kind of have this little bit of a spat about that, but it doesn't seem to matter as much in the long scheme of things. So that's kind of what's going on there. Um, and it's this kind of whole thing with long distance relationships where if you feel like the other person is not as invested, it's really easy to start feeling that resentment creep in when they don't want to talk to you, or you feel like they don't want to talk to you, but they're just busy, or like they have other stuff going on. But it's easy to feel that like kind of little bit of resentment creep in. And that's really just like emotional immaturity going on there. But these kids are supposed to be like 13 and 14 years old. So it makes sense that they aren't exactly the most emotionally mature people in the world. Um, and then Annabeth goes and talks to Thalia's tree, and Percy gets a dream about Grover in Polyphemus's cave. So we're kind of setting up the stakes here. And Grover tells Percy that they need to come and save him because he's going to be eaten by Polyphemus in a little while, because Grover has convinced him that he is a female Cyclops who has been wearing goat scented perfume this whole time, which is again hilarious. One of the things from the book that they easily could have left out, but they put it in, and I think that it's just such a fun thing. And another thing that I want to I want to put in here is that the parallels between Odysseus and his journey, which we'll talk about this more as the episodes go on, but the comparison between Odysseus and the comparison between Odysseus and Percy and Annabeth and Penelope and Grover. They are these parallel stories that are running together. And Rick Riordan does an excellent job of this. Every Percy Jackson story is telling the story of a different hero from Greek mythology. I'll have to figure out which one exactly, but this season is all about the story of Odysseus and trying to get home and trying to save the person who you love, even though this is about friendship love as opposed to romantic love in this case. But yeah, the goals are pretty evenly mixed together, that they need to go after the golden fleece, and in order to find the golden fleece they have to go to Polyphemus's island, which so happens to be where Grover is. So it seems a little bit too convenient, and that's probably because it is. It's probably because it is a little bit too convenient. But we also get introduced to Tyson's backstory, where he was abused by a sphinx, and that is as sad as it is in the books. And then we also get some of Percy's emotional trauma in here, because last year he was betrayed by not only his best friend at camp at the time. Luke was the person who really took him in, but also really like looked after him, and especially at the beginning he was Percy's only friend, and it turns out that he was working for Kronos the whole time and betrayed him and tried to kill him at the end of the last season. So again, Percy feels naturally a little bit betrayed about that, but then also uh, Ares betrayed him too. He offered him gifts and offered him presents and offered him help the whole season and over their whole quest, but it turns out that he was also just trying to get Percy to deliver the lightning bolt to Kronos. Before we move on to the next episode, we'll talk a little bit about the closing sequence, because the artwork for the closing sequence continues to be so incredibly beautiful. The art style, I don't even know what art style it is, but it's beautiful, and it shows a bunch of scenes from the books, and it's just amazing. I really love the artwork that they do at the end of this. But we get right into the next episode, and the opening shot is so good because it follows one of these birds as it is flying down towards the camp border, and you can kind of see the sunlight glint off of its beak, telling you that this is more than just a regular bird. This is some sort of demon bird that has bad intentions for the camp. So kind of see that go on. And then you also have Annabeth make a great plan about Percy being down by the chariot races and distracting old Tantalus, and getting seen down by the area, so that Annabeth can sneak into Chiron's office and send an iris message to Chiron, so that she can kind of figure out what's going on. And in this, Percy gets a sick own on Tantalus, but it eventually comes back to bite him on the butt, because Tantalus is pretty smart too. He's a smart antagonist, so it's fun to see a smart antagonist. And then we also get to see Chiron in Miami with the party ponies. That's hilarious. And we also get to see him just being sweet, decked out in his Hawaiian shirt. I really like that. We get Tantalus trying to drink some water, but being completely unable. And we also get Tantalus's like redecoration of Chiron's office of being all dark and gloomy and shrouded in darkness. So I really like that as well. Another thing that I really enjoy about this opening sequence is that it is a great plan. Annabeth is coming up with a great plan. Like it's just so easy to have a great plan come from your great characters, and it's just an easy, simple win. We also get the introduction of the cassette tapes while Annabeth is looking for a drachma to use to get an iris message. So that is introduced early, and we get to kind of see the um, idea of where Annabeth kind of comes up with the idea for the using the cassette tapes to fend off the. So that's awesome. And we get the iris message, and the iris message looks sweet. I don't know if we got one in the last season, but it looks so good in this episode. And then we get the moment that I was talking about earlier when Percy is, or when we cut back to Percy at the chariot races, and Clarice is talking to Chris Rodriguez, and Percy's just standing there kind of smirking because Clarice maybe isn't the best at talking to boys, and so Clarice um, is kind of bumbling that, and Percy's just kind of standing there smirking because he thinks it's kind of funny, but uh, she's like, "Shut up, Jackson!" again as a callback, even though he really didn't say anything. And then Percy is talking to Tantalus about, "Hey, we need to fix the barrier. Like this is a big problem." And Tantalus is again trying to keep everyone calm down and keep everyone from really knowing that it's as big of an issue. And then the rule books is introduced, and the whole thing is just awesome. And then we get introduced to the Great Prophecy, and we find out that there is a great prophecy about a child of the Big Three, and we get this whole cool scene where Annabeth has this ulterior motive now because she, like, another layer of nuance um and craziness has been added into her life because she has to keep Percy from knowing that there's something that he can't know, and she has to keep him from going on the quest, even though they need to go on a quest. So, and Percy is probably the right person to pick to go on this quest because it's a sea-based adventure. So it's just this whole thing, and it's also about the forbidden knowledge. Like, it's just such a fun, like, I don't know. The writing on this season is, again, I really like the first season, but the writing on the season is just so good, and the way that they're weaving these kind of connections together, I really enjoy that. I think that this season is really good, and then we get back to a Percy and Tyson scene, and these two are again awesome together. Tyson is doing some handyman stuff, fixing up some stuff in the cabin, finding he makes a compass for Percy so that he can find his way in the sea of monsters. But then Percy is like trying to figure out a wheel for his chariot, and Tyson's like, "Oh man, that's literally not even an issue." He puts it on his little wheel, spins it around, and bam, it's ready to roll. So we get a little bit of a hint of that, of Tyson's ability to be just an expert craftsman. He is so fun, and he wrote a letter to Sally, which is like one of the sweetest things. And Percy also feels a little bit bad about not writing um, his mom a letter, but I, I'm not exactly sure how to feel about that, but it is such a kind of cool moment there. Um, and we then get back to the chariot races, and all the other campers are there, and they're all decked out in their gear. Everyone in this scene looks sweet, including Tantalus uh, and Dionysus. Dionysus sitting in his sweet throne deal, and Tantalus talking through the big shell. Use it here in a little bit to ward off the birds, but all the other campers are talking. There's a really funny moment in here as well, where or excuse me, where Tantalus is talking about the rules of the game, and Dionysus is like, "Oh, you forgot to mention that there's no killing," and but things happen. So I thought that that part was really funny as well. Another thing that I really enjoy is stadium. And now time for another rant because it is rant time. Um, in a lot of productions, you do not see horses wearing protective leg gear. in this sort of event, it would be a good idea to have protective leg gear because your horses are going to be running, and there's a good chance of them overreaching and stepping on their feet with their other feet. There's a good chance of them banging their legs together while they're making turns. There's a good chance of other horses being in their zones or dangerous pieces of metal flying around. So it is a very good idea to have protective leg gear on your horses. And here we see that all of the horses are in protective leg gear and that they are all being handled in just such an expert way. All the stunt actors are doing a great job, and all of the handlers look to be doing an amazing job. And if you've seen the episode, you know that there is a memorial at the end of the episode. And I watched through the credits, and he was one of the horse managers, I believe. He was one of the people who was in charge of taking care of and of coordinating these scenes with these horses. And you can tell that he obviously cared so much about the animals in this show because they all look to be excellently cared for. Their equipment looks to be top notch. The chariots all look great, as do all the outfits and everything. And I love how colorful the banners and everything are. All the cabins having different banners that they're waving. The Athena cabin having big owl banners. The Ares cabin having banners. You can see, and then we're just really quick reminded of the birds up in the sky. I really like how the Hephaestus chariot is all steampunk and looks sweet. I just really enjoy that. And then we are introduced to Percy and his horses. And Percy's horses are so sweet. They are all decked out in blue. They have like blue slim boots and stuff. And I just think that that is such a cool touch because again, Poseidon is the father of horses, so it would make sense that he has the little bit of an edge when it comes to horses. And again, Percy's horses just look sweet, and their horsehair plumes that they have on their helmets look amazing. They also have a trident, so again, their whole vibe is just absolutely stellar. They look so good, and they look like they're having such a fun time. They just absolutely look like they are killing it. So, big fan of that. Um, I really enjoy this whole chariot race sequence. At times, it's a little bit hard to tell what is going on as far as the action goes, but that's a minor gripe. Um, I love how each of the cabins kind of goes through and they're like, "Hail, hail Hermes, hail Athena, hail not Mars. We're not there yet. Hail Ares." And Percy and Tyson are like, "Do you suppose that we should do like a hail Poseidon because they're the only two who are in their cabin?" But they decide not to because it's just them. And then Tyson, as adorably as ever, is like, "Hey, I don't want to hurt anyone." And Percy's like, "Well, just focus on defense." And Annabeth, because she is supposed to keep Percy from going on the quest, she tells her kind of comrade who's in her chariot with her, "Hey, if you see Poseidon's cabin or if you see Poseidon's chariot get out in first, you need to make sure that we take them out because we can't let Percy go." And she's like, "Well, I thought you and Percy were tight." And she's like, "Yeah, that's why I'm asking you to do it because I can't do it." And we see Clarice being a tactical genius here too, because she immediately takes advantage of the fact that the Hephaestus, um, the Hephaestus chariot is all steampunk, and she sabotages it immediately right at the beginning of the race. So she takes one of the teams out right at the very beginning of the race. So I think that is excellent. It's cool to see her strategery go on there. And we also see just, I mean, even though it's kind of hard to tell what's going on in some of these chariot scenes, they look great. Like the scenery looks awesome, the horses look awesome, the chariots look awesome. So it's all just so fun, and the whole arena looks great. And then, and as an added obstacle to what is already a dangerous event, we see the the chariots of Hephaestus start to overheat, and it eventually ends up exploding while Percy and Annabeth, or excuse me, Percy and Clarice are having a heated sword battle. And again, it's really cool to see Percy and Clarice go toe to toe because Luke is the best swordsman at camp. He always has been, always will be. And so it is cool to see um, him go toe to toe with Clarice. And Clarice is being shown to be a great warrior here because Percy goes toe to toe with Luke and Clarice goes toe to toe with Percy. So again, they are fairly evenly matched in that case. And at least in the show so far. And so Dionysus is hilarious. Um he is like egging on the violence with Tantalus, and Percy and Clarice are having their cool sword fight as they are kind of swerving around the um around the Hephaestus chariot. And so that's really cool. And there's a scene of it exploding behind them as their swords are crossed. That's so cool. Um, and you see Annabeth just absolutely racing like crazy. And then the birds attack. And then the dragons attack. Shout out to Through the Gryffindor for that one. But the birds attack, and Clarice sees her advantage because Percy's distracted, and she extends a spike on her wheel and takes out the Poseidon chariot. So Percy seems to be in danger there for a minute, but he turns out to be okay, and Tyson like saves him. But their chariot comes to a stop anyway because they decide that they need to go and help out with the birds. And the birds come down and they start attacking campers and causing a general nuisance of themselves. Annabeth comes to a stop because she knows that they need to help out with that as well. So she quickly comes up with a scheme that she remembers. Oh yeah, what's his name? Hercules defeated them with loud, high pitched noises, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I saw those CD, or I saw those cassettes when I was in his office." And she also is reminded because Tantalus is screaming also drives them off because Tantalus gets attacked by them too, which is perfect again. And so she goes and gets the cassette player. They play it through the horn, and they are successfully able to drive off the birds. And then they have a meeting in the big house. And again, Dionysus continues to be the peak of comedy because he's like, wow, that was a lot. Like I just think that his delivery is always so funny and so good. He is such a fun actor, and seeing him absolutely carry this is always so much fun. So that is always great. And then Tantalus takes credit for Percy's idea to go and get the golden fleece. And he tells the coordinates wrong because he's a dingus. And then he says that Clarice is the one who needs to go on the quest uh, because she won the chariot race. And so she picks Annabeth because Annabeth makes a great case for himself or for herself. But then Annabeth goes up and like whispers in Clarice's ear. And when Percy inevitably makes a great case for himself going because it's a seafaring adventure, and Percy would be the perfect person to take on the quest because of Annabeth, whatever she said, Clarice decides to pick Chris Rodriguez and not Percy. So Percy's like, what is going on? Why did Annabeth tell Clarice not to take me? Like, what is going on? So Percy is getting more and more upset. And then we get into Percy and Grover both in wedding dresses. This is a great change. Objectively, it's hilarious, and it fulfills so much fan service and everything. So again, love this change. Well worth the having them in a wedding dress. Um, whatever it cost, it was worth it. And and Grover like is asking Percy like how do I look? I have to make sure that I look good so that I don't get eaten by this Cyclops. And Percy's like, man, you look beautiful. And if your friend would not tell you that you look beautiful uh, enough to not be eaten by a cyclops, then you need better friends. I'll just tell you that right now. Um, I don't know. There are just so many funny moments from this episode, and one of my favorite funny moments is just this whole scene between these two, and then Percy wakes up, and he talks to Tyson a little bit about how um or he doesn't talk to Tyson, but he sneaks out and Tyson hears him leaving. So Tyson knows that Percy is sneaking out to go and save Grover. And Percy is kind of sneaking around camp, but not very well. He's just kind of walking down the main path. I know that if I was sneaking out of camp, I probably would not take the main path, but I also don't have as much main character energy as Percy has, so you know, take that with what you will. Percy makes it all the way to shore, and he asks for his father's blessing to go on this quest. And instead of his father showing up, Hermes shows up. As iconic as ever, Lin-Manuel Miranda does an excellent job in this scene. I thought that his inclusion in the first season was a little questionable, but he more than makes up for it here. He is so funny. Simply the line where Percy's like, "Man, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas," and he's like, "Man, what happens in Vegas is half the reason for half the kids in the Hermes cabin." So I think that is really funny. Um, and then he kind of talks about how the reason for the quest, he gives him a bunch of goodies. He gives him the thermos, he gives him the multivitamins, and he shows him the Princess Andromeda going by. And he also gives them Rainbow the raft. So we don't get Rainbow the hippocampus, but we do get Rainbow the raft. So, take what you can get. Hermes is, again, so funny. He is just awesome. He again emphasizes how uh, hey, you need to understand how things work in this family, and you can't give up on family no matter how tempting they make it. And that is a great through line for Percy in this, because Percy is tempted to give up on Tyson in this season, but he can't do that, and he also can't give up on Poseidon. And another thing is that he's talking about his son, and he says, "My son," which is again 1,000 memes spawned from that, where he is singing the song that includes that line from Hamilton that I still can't remember the name of. So there's that. But Annabeth goes and tries to find Percy, and she finds Tyson, and they realize that Percy is going on a quest by himself, and that is not going to be good for anyone. But Percy then gets a little indignant because he realizes that Hermes is trying to convince him to not only find Luke and stop him, but to save him. And Percy's like, "Hey, I have done everything that the gods have asked me to do. I have bent over backwards. I have gone on quests. I've gone on this quest. I'm trying to go on another quest to save camp, to save their kids. I have been obedient to the gods. I have done all of this. I chose you guys over Luke last year, and still my dad won't hardly talk to me. He sent you to talk to me instead. But Luke is in active rebellion against the gods, but his dad is out here still trying to save him. Like, this is ridiculous." And so Percy naturally feels a little bit indignant about that. And then Annabeth shows up, and they kind of have their little spat about, well, Annabeth is talking about how she really didn't enjoy any of the things that Percy recommended, like roller coasters, and how is having a hard time. Like, she did not enjoy any of the things from real life, and Percy really wants her to enjoy some of the things from being a normal kid, but she's having a hard time with that because, again, she had such a hard time growing up, and so it's a adjustment for her. She doesn't know exactly how to be a normal kid, and she found it all very boring at first. And so that's, again, a really interesting part of this whole thing. is Annabeth and Percy's kind of strained relationship here, and how they're definitely setting up the Percy stuff, but they are taking their time and they are showing that they have so much friction and stuff at first until they eventually again stop having so much friction and start being more in sync with each other. So I think that is really cool. And then Tantalus shows up, and Tantalus is such a compelling villain here because again he's so smart. He figures out he talks about the rules, and he talks about how the laws of the gods are not to be disobeyed, and he knows this better than anyone because again he broke the gods laws, and that is the whole reason that he was in the fields of punishment, why he bears his curse and the whole thing. So again, it's this whole thing. It's beautifully set up, and then they get on the rainbow raft, and Tantalus tries to shoot them with a crossbow, and then we are on to the end of the episode, and we get this kind of melodramatic moment from Annabeth where she's like, "Oh, we can never come back now," and I think that that's just a little bit silly, especially from someone as smart as Annabeth. I think that she should realize that, especially if they come back with the Golden Fleece, they're going to be welcomed back with open arms, especially if they're in time to save camp. So again, I think that that's a little bit, that moment is a little bit silly. I think that that is just not as believable in that part, but it's fine. And in this season, we are cutting it back and forth between two seaward adventures. We're cutting back, and sorry, we're going to the third episode. I apologize. But we are going back and forth between Clarice, and an interesting thing from Clarice, we get to see her visit the Oracle of Delphi here. And instead of seeing like someone spooky or someone who she hates, she sees herself, because if you remember the last season, Percy saw Gabe, and in this season Clarice sees herself give herself the prophecy, and we don't get to hear the whole prophecy yet, which I think is a fun way to do it because we're not in Clarice's head, so we don't get to know the whole prophecy yet. So I think that is really cool. But we cut between Clarice and her setting out on her journey on the Ironside, and we cut between the Princess Andromeda and Percy and Annabeth and Tyson, slowly figuring out that, oh, this isn't just a normal cruise ship. This is Luke's cruise ship. So I think that is really cool. They kind of slowly find all of the Kronos memorabilia, and you know what? Kronos's branding team needs a raise because all the banners look great. All of the matchbooks look awesome. I mean, he is doing that part right. If he's doing nothing else right, he is doing branding just so well. He's got that scythe everywhere, and then we get introduced to Clarice's Ironside and their crew, and I think that that part is awesome. They're singing a sea shanty about Elysium. That's amazing, and they at first really don't respect Clarice because she's a girl, and it's normally not girls who the Ares cabin normally really respects, but Clarice eventually proves her leadership skills once again and takes charge and really takes control of them. A standout moment from this part of the episode is that one of her crew members is wearing a Blockbuster uniform, and they're like, "What are you doing here? Like, the rest of us are defeated warriors," and he's like, "Yeah, the streaming wars, they got pretty rough there towards the end." So I think that part is just really funny. Um, and then we also get to see the same gal who was hunting Grover on the ship on the Princess Andromeda. And I think that that is awesome. Like, we as the viewers are kind of hinted at the fact that it is that it is not what it seems before Percy and them do. And then we get to see that whole kind of deal, and we figure out that, oh yeah, it's not just a regular cruise ship, it is a monster cruise ship. And we get introduced into the sarcophagus of Kronos and Luke's kind of final plan to bring Kronos back by having people swear to Kronos and them bringing up little chunks of him from Tartarus, one little piece at a time. And again, I think that this is such an awesome metaphor because the sarcophagus itself looks like it is this dark stone that is cracked and broken that is being sealed together with gold. It looks like what is that? I can't remember what it's called, but there is Japanese art that is this where you mend broken bowls with gold. And here, I think that it is very metaphorical of mending the broken pieces of Kronos with the golden blood of Olympus in the children of Olympus. So I think again, I think that is just an excellent moment there. And then Luke makes his sale pitch, and honestly, it is very compelling, especially for Tyson. Like Tyson would not be treated as a monster like he is in lots of cases, which I wish they would have done. Again, now that I'm thinking about it, I wish they would have done a little bit more of people showing him more animosity. But then again, he was immediately like sent to house arrest as soon as he got to camp, so that's kind of part of that. That does kind of make sense. But I wish that we kind of would have seen some people like treating him worse. I don't wish that we saw that, but it would have made more sense for the story wise if some more people would have been treating him poorly as we kind of got to camp. So again, that part is just a little different, but um, nevertheless, Luke's sales pitch is very compelling because he does offer Kronos or he does offer Tyson a very good deal in the fact that he could come and live on Luke's ship and could be treated like anyone else. And so we kind of get the resolution of that. Tyson has his JD moment. He builds a bomb and blows up the Lystragonians, and then they escape off the ship in one of the lifeboats. And Percy used the wind thermos to get them away safely. And Percy and Annabeth kind of talk about how Percy has this fate because Luke revealed to Percy what he was not supposed to know, in that he has a great prophecy about himself. And Luke is again trying to convince Percy to join his side because he's like, hey, I'll tell you what the prophecy is. Like, I know Kronos told me, why are the gods keeping knowledge from you? And again, this is a great point of the gods do a lot to sow their own destruction in this series. They do not do a good job of taking care of their children, and especially in this case, they almost seal their own destruction by not trusting and not treating people better. So again, the decisions that Percy eventually makes, which I'm not going to spoil the end of the series, but the decisions that Percy eventually makes and the things that Percy eventually does at the end of the series make so much sense because of the setup that they're doing here. So again, I'm so excited for the rest of the season and the rest of the series as a whole. This season has been so good so far, and I am so excited for the next few episodes of this season to come out. We still have 5 more episodes of this season to come out. So again, I'm so excited. It's going to be so good. We're going to get to see so much good stuff, and all of the crew members are now in this in the Sea of Monsters, and we are about to be seeing some sweet naval action out of both of them. So again, so excited for that. But if you guys want to stay up to date with these, I'm going to try and do weekly episodes of this. My personal life just kind of got a little bit crazy the last couple weeks, so that's why I haven't been putting out weekly stuff for this. But I'm trying to get caught up now, and hopefully I'll be able to do weekly episodes as these come out, and then we'll go from there. So, thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to stay caught up on this, be sure to follow me on all of my social medias. Be sure to follow me on YouTube and Spotify. If you like listening to the podcast, then be sure to watch or to follow us on Spotify and listen on Spotify because that is the best for numbers and stuff. And if you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a rating. If you're on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate it so much. And thank you to anyone who is watching this live. I've really had fun with these live recordings, and I really appreciate anyone who has taken the time to watch this live. So, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you back next week with another episode from Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And this